I, James Bukovic, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. The oath of enlistment that many or all veterans said when entering military service. Yesterday was Veterans Day, a federal holiday here in the United States, honoring military veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. And those that are new to my channel, I am a veteran myself. I retired from the United States Army in 2015. And it's hard to believe that I said that oath of enlistment 32 years ago, the 28th of October, 1992. And what brought up the idea for this video is that I was catching up on some of the comments on my other YouTube videos, and some people thanked me for my service. And I do appreciate that. Those that commented to me knowing that I'm a veteran and appreciating my service and thanking me for it. But I got to thinking about that term or that expression or phrase, thank you for your service. And I think many veterans would agree, perhaps it's overused. Perhaps it makes us sometimes feel awkward. And I think now it's becoming one of those things where people think it's just something that you do. It's just one of those things, and not necessarily understanding what they're thanking the service member for. The origins of Veterans Day, I had to refresh my memory on, dates back to the 1920s. It was called Armistice Day. And 1921, an unknown World War I American soldier was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. I'm reading this from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the origins of Veterans Day. Perhaps some of you have been to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and all of that in Washington, D.C. But the site on a hillside overlooking the Potomac River and the city of Washington, D.C. became the focal point of reverence of Americans' veterans. And similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France. And these memorial gestures all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated end of World War I, fighting at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The day became known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day. Officially received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. If the idealistic hope had been realized that World War I was the war to end all wars, November 11th might still be called Armistice Day. But only a few years later, after the holiday was proclaimed, of course, war broke out in Europe and we had World War II. 1947, a man by the name of Raymond Weeks was celebrating veterans. He called it Veterans Day. And this was in Birmingham, Alabama. And a U.S. representative heard about it and proposed a bill to change it, Armistice Day, to Veterans Day. And a law was passed in a bill was passed in 1954, and President Eisenhower signed it, proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. So just a bit of history there, just to refresh all of our memories on how it all started and why we had such a day yesterday. And another side note, General John Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force, did not approve Armistice Day. I thought that was interesting. So he didn't give instructions to his commanders to suspend any new offensive action during the remaining hours until 11 a.m. And so that gave commanders latitude to do whatever they wanted. And so you still had fierce fighting going on until 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918. And Pershing had to face a congressional hearing to explain why there were so many deaths when the hour of the armistice was known in advance. And just think of all the people killed. And it says that on November 11th alone in 1918, 11,000 casualties, dead, missing, and injured, exceeded those on D-Day in 1944. Over 3,500 of these were American. Another little bit of history that I didn't know about. Thank you for your service. Last year, there was a survey conducted by USAA, United Services Auto Association, their insurance company, and they also have banking, online banking. They had a survey, and it showed that there exists a concrete evidence that veterans are indeed tired of the withering barrage of thanks. All told, half of the 1,639 veterans and military personnel surveyed said, "Thank you for your service," makes them feel downright uncomfortable or awkward. That number, however, climbs to nearly 70% when it comes to veterans between the ages of 18 and 29. Only veterans 65 and over responded that the phrase is favorably received. And so I have noticed that myself. And so you will have a lot of these, you have Korean War vets. I guess maybe there's some few World War II vets around, not that many. Vietnam War vets, and you'll see them out in public, whether they're wearing something that identifies them, whether it's a shirt like this, signifying they were in the military, a unit, their hat, veteran, whatever it may be. And so people seem to then, it seems like the door is open for them to say to that individual, "Thank you for your service." And I think the older generation do appreciate it, since it may not have been appreciated so much when they were in, especially the Vietnam War veterans. And it's sad the way that they were treated and talked to and the indifference that they received. And so I think it is nice that, hey, somebody's recognizing them. When I hear it, "Thank you for your service," I do get a little, I don't know, it's a little bit awkward sometimes when I go out and I'm at a store. I usually ask about veterans discounts, Home Depot, Lowe's, when I'm doing home improvement stuff. I've utilized that a lot to get the the 10% discount off of things. And oftentimes the person behind the register will say, "Oh, well, thank you for your service," most of the time. Or online, the comment section, "Thank you for your service." Or if I'm in a live chat and I mention that, "Hey, I'm a veteran, thank you for your service." It's just seems to be overused. But it's good intentions. I think a lot of veterans know that. We're nothing against you. We appreciate it. It's better than the way Vietnam veterans were treated. But I think there's other ways we can go about doing this. And I got to thinking, sometimes I feel embarrassed about being a veteran, or ashamed, or I feel silly sometimes being a veteran. And why do I say that? Why do you say that, Jim? Well, because as you get older, you're starting to learn more of the truth on what is going on. Learning about the military-industrial complex. As World War veteran General Smedley Butler said, he wrote a book, "War is a Racket." Decorated soldier. And he was an anti-war activist. And a man who spent, I think it was over 30 years himself, made it to the rank of general. And him realizing that he's just a part of this machine, even then. And then General Eisenhower warned against the military-industrial complex. War is a racket. It's big business, and the money that is made in war, and all the contracts, and all the different things that are made to keep this big war machine going. Just think about it. And now thinking about it, realizing it more so now than ever before, and I think to myself, man, I was a part of that. I can now understand what General Smedley Butler was talking about. I joined the military at the age of 19. And my father being a veteran during the Vietnam War era, he didn't have to go to Vietnam. They sent him to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, volunteered, but he only did a couple years, and they said, no, Chuck, go home. So he didn't have to go to Vietnam. And so at first he didn't want me to join the military. And he never did explain to me why. He would have preferred that I had learned a trade and all of that. But of course, I did well in the military, and he was later very proud of me. And I talk to people even now, even to this day, of people that knew my father. They tell me how proud he was of me. And he was always keeping people up to date on where I was stationed, where I was, what I was doing. So he was always following along with it. I know he was proud of my service and how well I was able to do. And so now, but knowing what I know now, I don't think I would have joined the military. And I've had people tell me that I drank from the Kool-Aid, that you were just cannon fodder. It's a shame that we do all this patriotism and we entice young people to go join, and it's all just a charade when you start pulling back the curtain of how government works, to where even people were saying, and I've even had veterans saying they don't even vote, thinking that it's already decided who's going to be elected, that presidents aren't installed, or presidents aren't elected, they are installed, that voting doesn't count, it doesn't matter. And Jim, if it really mattered, they wouldn't allow us to do it. And on it goes. And it's just like, wow, making you feel a little regretful of your life decision to go serve the country. And yes, I did it for other reasons. Leaving this small town and where I was from, I knew there was a big old world out there. I could go join the military. I knew they would pay me. I knew there were benefits involved with it. I knew that if I wanted to go get an education, I knew that they would pay for it. I could learn a skill, a trade, a job. I was fascinated by helicopters. I knew the Army had most of the helicopters. And on it went. So I was going to go off and go join and serve my country. Red, white, and blue. Patriotism. And I think it's something that's built in a lot of men. To go serve and do something higher than themselves. And you can watch little children play. And a lot of times, what are the boys doing? They're getting sticks and making swords, and they're out there fighting, defending the homeland out there, wanting to be the hero and making a cape out of a beach towel and running around through the yard or on the beach and fighting the good fight, good against evil. Playing army. I used to play army, running through the woods, making grenades out of mud, making a rifle out of a stick, pretending that I'm in war and combat and protecting. It's built in us. There's something about it, of going off and fighting for a cause. And I think of history, the Revolutionary War, which was made popular in the Mel Gibson's movie, The Patriot, and that farmer who had served in other wars and just wanted to be a gentleman farmer, and he was pulled back into war and fought in that revolution. And it's just something that's got some type of nostalgia or romance to it, if you want to say. Or even, what is it? Even in that movie Braveheart, where by watching that movie, I learned about that man by the name of William Wallace and the Scottish knight who led an army and defeated the English for their freedom. And he is still celebrated to this day. And so it's what I think men do. A lot of men do. To go serve, and it was something honorable. My father was drafted. He served reluctantly. They made him serve because of the draft. His father served for a short time. My grandfather served. He was also on my mother's side. He did 20 years in the Army and retired. So there's a history of military service in my family, and I am sure those that are listening, there's a history of military service in your family. And it's just this heritage and a line of men who answered the call, as they say, to go serve and to defend the homeland, to protect the things that they love. And I don't think we should feel bad about that. And there's a lot of people that will make us feel bad about that. I have this book here called The Book of Man. Bill Bennett wrote it. Readings on the Path to Manhood. Man in War. This is a chapter, Man in War. I love the image that they've got here with the Black Hawk and the two soldiers here. I thought that was kind of cool because I flew one of these. And there were some things in it that he said here. What is it about combat that would make a young man leave his home and family to risk death for a cause that is not entirely his own? What is war that a man would fall on an enemy grenade to save his comrades? Simply put, war restores in man the belief that there are some things worth fighting for and dying for. Things like love, liberty, and faith. Furthermore, it instills in men a notion of priorities, what Augustine called the ordo amorum, the order of the loves, and responsibility for the protection of the individual, the family, and the polis. P-O-L-I-S, meaning politic, polis. Famous World War II General George S. Patton said, "Battle is the most magnificent competition in which a human being can indulge. It brings out all that is best, it removes all that is base. Duty is the essence of manhood." Duty. A man's duty. And for many men, they think or believe it's their duty. Not all men. Nothing against men who don't serve. And maybe in some ways I can admire that. Maybe you were the smart one, realizing a lot of these things that a lot of us now are finally starting to realize how this doggone system actually works in our government. And it almost makes you want to start losing a bit of your patriotism, questioning your patriotism. But I like to think that voting still counts. Look at this last election. People got out and voted. I thought for sure, come hell or high water, hook or crook, Kamala Harris was going to get installed no matter what. And I thought the powers that be were going to make sure she got in. Some way, somehow, we were going to get our first mixed race female president. But votes were counted, popular vote, electoral vote, Donald Trump won it. And I still think that there's powers that be are going to still try to prevent him from getting in there in January. So stay tuned for that one. We can't get too relaxed right now. But the people spoke. And so that instills in me some hope that just maybe our voices still do count. Maybe they still do count. Maybe our votes do matter. And all the people out there that want to say, no, Jim, no, it doesn't matter. I'm glad people voted. That's what a lot of people like me and others and veterans that we celebrated yesterday protected to defend. Our rights and our freedoms to vote. This Constitution. Right? George Washington on the front. It's only keepers, the people, George Washington said here on the front. To support and defend the Constitution. So help me God. That's what the veterans did yesterday. And not get it confused with Memorial Day. Veterans are the ones that are still here. The heroes are the ones that aren't here. I'm very fortunate to still even be alive. Recruiting's down, and it's understandable. Very much understandable. And continuing on here, I like this last part of this chapter. But remember, when civility, diplomacy, and the rule of law fail, it is only through war that good conquers evil and freedom crushes tyranny. As Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. told Harvard students in 1895, war, when you are at it, is horrible and dull. It is only when time has passed that you see that its message was divine. Learn from war, or learn from men at war. Pray for peace, but always be ready to fight. I like that one. Pray for peace, but always be ready to fight. And that's me, even to this day. It is ugly. War is ugly. Been there. I was in Afghanistan. I saw things there. I don't have PTSD, thankfully, but I did see enough and the aftermath and what it can do, and it's not good. And but I stand ready. And that if I'm pulled out of retirement to serve for a noble cause again, I'm here to do just that. And I'd like to think that there is no expiration date on my oath of enlistment. When I said that 32 years ago, I meant it, and it still stands today. It's who I am. It's what I spent the most of my adult life doing. I was a soldier. Held different ranks, of course. But I will always consider myself a soldier through and through. And it's been hard letting go of it. Letting go of that identity. You know, I took a lot of pride in it. And when you no longer wear the uniform and you have to readjust to being a civilian. And in some ways, I'm still adjusting. I'm still adjusting. Like this right here, this is the most facial hair I've ever had my entire life. Trying something new. I was thinking, I'm going to try to rock a beard. Let's see how this is. But this is the most facial hair I have ever had in my life. And when I look in the mirror, it's like, man, this is not the norm. It's like, I want to get shaven, keep my hair cut, no hair on the ears. I'm still rocking that military style. And now this is a bit of letting go after all these years. Retired in 2015. And just kind of, switching over into a civilian mode still. But there are some things that I will always hold on to. And part of that is fitness and discipline. And there's a lot of things I will continue to carry over and maintain from my military life and will until the end of time, to the end of my life, for sure. So, Jim, what do we do? What do you want us civilians to say or do for our veterans? Instead of saying thank you for your service, well, what's your recommendation, Jim, then? Well, I've got some recommendations for you. Instead of thank you for your service, how about ask them something about their service? Where were you stationed at? Oh, really? What was your job? What was your MOS? What was your military occupational specialty? Oh, really? Did you go overseas? Where did you serve at? Where was your favorite place to be stationed? Oh, wow. And you'll find that a lot of us will speak and share stories. Like this right here. Jim, what's that? What's that Bravo 37 SF? What does that mean? That's Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group, Alpha. That's an A-team, Special Forces A-team. Oh, really? Where was that at? Oh, I was at Fort Bragg. Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group, blah, blah, blah. Start the conversations. Or how about, what do you think about today's military? Boy, it seems like, boy, it's getting woke and all this and that and political correctness. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on today's military? Would you recommend a young person to join the military today? You see? Ask things like that. Or vote. I'm glad people voted. Do things like vote. That's what a lot of us fought for, that you can go do those things. And even if, my thing is even if it is cooked and the gig is up and it's already decided beforehand, I still like to go and vote anyway. And I just tell anybody, vote anyway. This is our country. And we can't forget it. Serve your community. You can do things like that. Other thing, I don't really think of what I did all that special joining the military. It was just, it was a job. It was a choice. But what about police officers? You know, why don't we say to them, thank you for your service? Or firefighters, or state police, or utility workers. We're all serving. And that's why I just feel a little off when someone says thank you for your service, when there are other people besides me who are serving. And then educate yourself on veterans' issues and what's going on. You know, you have the suicide rates and drug use and PTSDs, and there's a lot of things going on with veterans. So just educate yourself on them. And if you're going to give to a veterans organization, make sure you vet them and be very careful. Some of these organizations can be shady and act like they're doing something for veterans when in fact they're not. So make sure that they're legit before you give your money to them. But I think those are the things we can do now. And maybe here in the next Veterans Day, or just when you're interacting and you come across a veteran, instead of saying, thank you for your service, ask them a question. Have them talk about something and just show an interest that way. And I think that way, it's not overused. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of veterans would agree, especially from that survey with the ages of 18 to 29. 70% are uncomfortable or awkward when that's said to them. So I just wanted to share that coming from another veteran, and just thinking about yesterday being Veterans Day as I pondered and thought about different things about it. So anyway, that was all. Hope you got something out of it. I won't get this to go too long, but thanks for watching. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Be safe. Stay free.